Are we on?
Hold on, let me make
We're
sure.
not, well, we are voting on just one thing tonight, but that's all. We're not voting on the budget till next.
Okay. Call it, order the, audit, the budget meeting for the town of Ramseur. So the first thing we have is Carol.
If you want to make those comments on something, I'm going.
Well, what I was gonna talk about was the employee time study I did, about the cameras and the time clocks and that kind of stuff. With the remote employees that work out of the street department, it's virtually impossible to use a time clock. 'Cause if you lose so much time when, like if they're at the lake mowing, it takes at least 6 minutes to get back to clock in, to go to lunch. Or clock out and then come back to clock in or whatever. If you got 3 employees, that amounts to a lot of time. I figured out, I think it's 150 hours a year. So I would suggest that the board, that we forget about time clocks for those employees. And as far as the wastewater treatment plant, we put a camera over there and the results are fantastic. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been done.
So that was the only questions we had that I knew of, so I would suggest that we just let Jason be the supervisor and go from there. Anybody got any comments? Joey mentioned that a few minutes a day wouldn't, but it does amount to a lot of time when you start, because they have to go back. Now I would like to talk to the board about this. When these guys are out here working, what's the problem with them taking the truck to whichever restaurant they want to go to and eat lunch? Or if, I think all of them live fairly close, don't they?
Everybody would work.
Yeah, right, but it would be it would be a lot cheaper on the town if they drove the truck to their home, if they go home to eat lunch, than it would to drive all the way back over here and get their vehicle and then back and forth. And I mean, that's absurd, in my opinion. But I think in the past, they've been told that they can't take the company trucks, the town trucks to the restaurant.
Makes sense, they used
No,
to.
I've told them they could do that. Yeah, I've told them they can take a truck to the restaurant.
Right,
in town.
and they all live fairly close, those 3 anyway, live fairly close, don't they?
Yeah, Sean lives on East Ridge. The other Sean lives, up here near, Laughlin Pond on 64.
Right.
Max, Max is probably gonna come get his truck, because he'll go mow somebody's yard.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, Mark, he lives in Seagrove, he lives a little ways out there. But other than that, them two and Max don't live that far either, but I don't think he ever goes home on one. The other 2, I think they go home pretty much every day at once.
But if he lives right here in town, why would he have, it don't make sense to take the truck, and go all the way back to the operation center and get his vehicle, go home and then come back, just leave the job and go eat.
Yeah. The only thing you might have with that is like, let's say them 2 guys are in the same truck working together that day, they'll have to come back and,
Yeah,
you gotta choose.
I can understand that.
If they're in a truck by themselves, then, yeah,
they never eat at the restaurants, do they?
them 2 don't, they always eat at home.
Okay. We get it worked out. Let's, Carol?
Yes. Who 23-24 audit, I just wanted to say to y'all, that Mr. Carrick finished up today about midday. He only had to stay about a day and a half to do field work because it was in such good shape to turn it over to him. Thanks to Debbie. And, anyway, he's got some office work now to do on it, and he's hoping that it will be in by the end of the month. And I told him if at all possible, because I wanted to, I don't want to say what I'm thinking. I want to be able to tell the LGC we got 3 audits done this year like we promised. So, there.
And tell her it makes 4 in a year and a half.
Since you've been here, yes, absolutely. The other thing I guess we'll just move on is Cape Fear Telecom, the block maintenance contract. We should have really had this approved back in March, April. She sent it to me, but I just failed to bring it before the board. We normally do 20 hours a month, and I just left it at that, and that is included in the budget. So I'd just like to have permission to renew this for another year.
I'd entertain that motion.
Make that a motion.
I hear a second.
I second.
All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Now, I want to go back to something else. You remember when we talked about the $200,000 deficit? All right, I found our tax increase, the 72,000, whatever. But this $200,000 is still a mystery, and we've talked to, we got hard copies of all the conversations we've had with all these people. And we've talked to everybody that we know to talk to in the county, and Duke Power also, and the county's blaming it on Duke Power, and of course, we sent all the paperwork to Mr. Hennings at Duke Power, and of course, we hadn't heard back from him, but I'm certainly we will. It has to do with they had overestimated the value of their, how'd they say that, Carol?
The value of the utilities here in Ramseur.
In Ramseur, they'd overestimate. Now, if they overestimated it, where the tax was $200,000, they did a lot of overestimating, didn't they? It's kind of hard to, I just don't understand it. But we absolutely want to get some answers. The next place we're going is the Department of Revenue.
Okay, so when you say they overestimated the utilities, you're talking about the power they're sending, or what the energy that, and so they estimated, I guess, what, per year?
No, what it has to do with is their utilities in our area.
It's a franchise thing.
Right. Listen, I'll tell you personally, and I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe the first word that I'm hearing from them.
So in other words, the money that we should have had was pulled out, and that's why we are short, or instead of going up.
That's right, instead of going up, it went down $200,000.
So in other words, they kind of reached in there and pulled it out, took it.
That's a good word.
How you do that and not be accountable? I mean, or be able.
Well,
Okay, let me hurry.
we're gonna get, I'm gonna do my best to get to find out, to have it explained to me where I can understand it.
Okay.
Because I absolutely don't think they have an explanation.
Our neighbor down the river a little ways, I talked to her. And theirs did not go down at all. And so I don't understand. She explained to me that usually when you have a deficit, it's because, like, one year with them, the same guy that owns a lot of property on Main Street, he claimed his property wasn't worth what the county said. And so it caused a deficit on that report. But see, that has not happened. None of that has been reported to us. The first we knew about anything is when we saw the deficit.
Yeah, I know what she was talking about when she told you that it was a reevaluation that
Yeah,
They
yeah, they did a
did.
reevaluation and it caused their projected tax space like this to come down. She said, but you wouldn't have known about that ahead of time. And we didn't know nothing ahead of time, so we are still pursuing it.
and we're gonna do our best to get the answers that we can understand.
So basically, I guess you could say like when Ramtech shut down and they tore half of that building down in a sense, you know, we lost energy there.
No,
Or,
no telling what we lost.
Yeah.
I was gone then
yeah.
when that happened.
But that's kind of what we're talking about here in a
Right.
sense.
Right.
Okay.
That would have made that paper go down, it would have made it go down on commercial property also.
We ain't lost any commercial property.
See, when that stuff left, when Ramtech left, that was a
Well,
blow to,
Crawford, yeah, Crawford Knitting, but they're still there.
because they used half of our water and paid half the taxes. And then they tore the building down. So that was really a big
Below, yeah.
blow to us.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, Crawford Knitting, but they just shut down. They hadn't been shut down that long that we lose that amount of money.
Yeah, but we shouldn't, the property value didn't go down just because, now they might have moved something from inside.
Personal property probably
Yeah,
went
but
down.
I don't think that would have been $200,000 in taxes.
And the power probably went down, so they probably based it on power bills.
Yeah,
Of course, my power bill's up, so.
everybody's is. Okay. Well, it would be nice for somebody to explain
Yes, it would.
why we lost that amount of money, because that's a lot.
That's what we're asking for, an explanation that we can easily understand.
Yeah.
But they first pointed the fingers at Duke, then now they're pointing their fingers at the Department of Revenue, so,
Who's
the
that?
county.
The county, okay.
So we have no idea. I don't
It's
believe,
actually pointed at the fire departments first.
yeah, it's all the fire districts. Yeah, make sense of that.
Yeah, and then whenever I questioned that, then they pointed the finger at Duke. Whenever I questioned that, they pointed the finger at Department of Revenue.
So
I
they,
don't think they know.
well, I wonder, do they know, and they just not being honest?
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
And
I
that's
don't
a
believe a
suspicion
word of it.
also.
I don't believe a word of it.
Well, it's mighty funny that it happened on the Ramseur. And I'm gonna leave that alone.
Move on?
Yep.
Yes, let's do,
Budget?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, I'm going to read to you an email that I got from Ann Moore at the LGC. And so we don't worry about anything about this budget. Thank you for submitting your fiscal year 26 budget to the LGC staff for review. Based upon our limited desk review, your unit's draft operating budget for the fiscal year June 30th, 26 appears to comply with the provisions of the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. Once you've adopted your budget, your focus should turn to adhering to the adopted budget, using pre-audit budget controls and periodic budget reporting for management and elected officials. Please let us know if we can provide any information or guidance related to these efforts. So I just wanted to say that before I started. They have blessed it of sorts, so we don't have to worry about it, but I want to explain everything. First, it's a revised copy of last week's. After we had talked to the LGC, Ann had called me up and there was some discrepancies that she did not understand, and that's whenever that happened. That 77,000 was what she couldn't understand we were adding in revenue, and that's when I sent you the email the next day. I've tried to, on the copies that I've given you, the changes that I made, I've tried to make it in green or yellow or something that'll show up so you'll know this is just the changes. Um, the one from today is the most recent date for your budget for this year. I've tried to put that on everything updated as per the phone call with LGC, so you know that this one is the most recent date. I didn't want any confusion about that. All the rest of them is now void. And like I may have mentioned, I'm not gonna read the whole budget again to you. I read it last week, so I'm just gonna go over the parts that changed. And if you don't mind holding it to the end, we'll explain, I'll try to explain anything then. The 77,000, what it was on the revenue. And it had been on there for several years on the budget. And it was here on this, the general fund revenue, as part of the revenue. And Ann Moore brought up that, or the LGC, she's just our contact person. They brought up that registered motor vehicles, which is the RMV on this report, is already included in your projected tax base, so you can't put another 77,000 down. So that was the first thing that come up. And of course, I said, I cannot cut the budget another 17,000. It's cut as tight as it can possibly get. I can't cut it. Help, tell me what to do. And so she made some suggestions to us, and we followed up on those. First, which I'm very grateful for, and I gave you another copy of this. I'm very grateful she let us change our collection rate to 99%, which is true. That's what the audits have been showing, the last 3 that we got done, 2 that we got done this year. And so she let us change that to 99%, which made a huge difference. It made $35,736.15 difference. So that was about half of the 77 there. That means that 179,292.83 went into the general fund, and 36,472.97 went into Parks and Rec. So that was a big hunk right there. And just let me go through, then I'll just go through this from top to bottom and try to explain it as we go. I just said that Randolph County, in the message, Randolph County estimates the real property and vehicle valuation of the town of Ramseur to decrease to 175,61981 from 172,564.30. And that's what we were just talking about. In the fiscal year 25-26, we can estimate to collect around 1,215,766 in property tax revenues. Of this, as per the town ordinance, 3% goes to Parks and Rec, which we just said, 36,473, and 97% to general fund, 1,179,293. And this budget is figured after we redone this with a 6% decrease in sales and use tax, because they think that sales and use is going to go down this year. So we figured it with a 6% decrease. Previously, the enterprise fund has reimbursed the general fund for eligible expenses. In 25-26, there is no reimbursement to the general fund. No fund balance is proposed for 25-26. So you got that bit back in your account, Jason. And then I just wanted to mention again that there is a public hearing next Tuesday on the 17th at 6:30 p.m. here at Town Hall. And hopefully we can pass the budget then, and we'll be done for this year, and we can breathe. So, to go on to the budget ordinance, the administration, sheriff's department, fire department, and street department was the only departments that changed in revenues. And those went up. Some other revenues that were mentioned, and I forgot to put it on the budget. Not on the budget. I forgot to put it on the agenda. It was recommended, actually our auditor recommended that we take that 538, 598 that's been the ARPA funds It is still, we used that years ago, a couple of years ago, for, what was it called, JC?
Salary replacement or something.
Salary replacement, there was another term
Term,
too,
yeah.
but that was it. But we could put all of it into that because of the amount that we received. And so we put all of it into that, but the funds had never actually moved at the bank out of that separate account and into the general fund account. So it's still just sitting there, not earning interest. And so, Mr. Haney, as it was the one that recommended that we put it in a CD. If it's just sitting there, it's been sitting for years. If it's just sitting there, it recommended that we put it in a CD. I contacted Rigo, and I believe it was, yes, just on that one CD alone, in a year's time, we can expect to earn, right now anyway, 18,000. So that's another big old hunk against that 17,000. And so I would like to get, I can put it on next week's budget, but I would like to get a vote to get that money moved from there into a CD. I prefer we can put it with Capital Management Trust, and the mayor and I just discussed the pros and cons of that, just went over it. I don't like that because they charge a fee and they won't tell you exactly what their fee is. They say their rate is like 4%, we looked it up. It's like 4%, a little over 4%, but they won't tell you what their fee is that's coming out of that. And I personally would prefer for it to stay with Fidelity Bank because I can watch it every month, I can see what's happening. I can make sure that at the end of the year that it gets renewed and we can use that interest again for the budget. And I can, make sure that the interest on it is transferred out of the CD and into our general fund account. And so that's my preference, but y'all can mull over it until next week and I'll be sure to put that on the agenda. But anyway, that was another hunk that she recommended. She also recommended just income on investment. The monies that we get from North Carolina Office of State Controller, the utilities franchise, the sales and use tax, these, look, that ain't it. Alcohol beverage income, and I thought there was another one. I may be overlooking it. But she suggested that we look up on Department of Revenue and see exactly what it was that they had sent us for the year. So we have proof of that, where Debbie looked it all up. She worked and looked it all up. We have proof of that so we could show that on our revenue. So instead of 77,000, we went pew. And I'm like, thanks for telling us all of this. And so I redid the whole budget again. And what you see in green is the things that changed. And I took out some of this on the revenue. I looked back 2 or 3 years ago, and this was a page and a half. And we've cut it down to stuff that actually we have on revenue. And so our auditor and Mr. Haney, they really love that because they like things to be very simplified. And so the ad valorem property taxes went to 179,293. The property tax interest, we took that out. Vehicle tax collection, that was where the 77 was, it came out. Prior years, because we don't really separate out prior years and current, Mr. Haney and Mr. Carrick told us that that was okay, so we took that out altogether. Interest on income investment, that's the 18 we expect to collect on the CD. Miscellaneous revenue, general fund, put that back to what it was before. Clerk of court officer fees and police miscellaneous revenue, we went ahead and took that out because we may not be getting it because it's the sheriff's department now. I figure we won't. And so the utilities franchise, went up to 72,807. The sales and use tax went up to 656,900. The sale of cemetery plots, we put that back to 3,000 like it was. The sales tax revenue, the E585, we put that to 20,000 because I think Mr. Haney told me, and I don't have, he hasn't sent me the paperwork yet, but I think he told me that that was going to be 17,000, but we put it at 20. That's less than what it was before. The motor fuels tax refund, we left that at 2,000 where it was. Solid waste tax, that was the other one, it actually went down. That comes from the North Carolina State Controller. It actually went down. Alcoholic beverage income is 8,600. That we got where the figures was sent into the state for that. Zoning permits, we put that back to 3,000 like it was. Museum building rent, we put that back down. I had raised stuff up everywhere just a little bit to try to help us on the budget. Gov deals, I put that back down to 5,000, and large item pickup back down to 1,000. So that's a more realistic list of the revenues. So the revenue is 2,153,510. And so then it just goes on to repeat that. The operations is 1,500,396. The debt, and that's on water and sewer utilities, is $27,005. Capital outlays $172,067, making their total water and sewer of $1,699,468, and that's what the revenues are. The recreation, of course, so you know I've talked about that we put some extra into the recreation fund, and that just went to just decrease the fund balance that we were using this year for recreation. And the LGC did make mention that we need to do something about keep using fund balance in Parks and Rec, and which we had already discussed, but that's what happened to your extra money. It just came out of not having to use so much fund balance. The PAL bill didn't change any. And then the LGC didn't like the way Section 10 was worded, and to make it make sense, I felt like I had to change Section 9 too, and so she agreed with it. They say that the exact same thing, so I'm going to only read one of them. There is hereby levied a tax rate at the rate of 72 cents per $100 valuation of property as listed for purposes of revenue listed under current year's property taxes in the general fund in Section 2 of this ordinance. And the same thing is listed, current year property taxes in Section 6 of Parks and Rec. This rate is based on the total valuation of property for the purposes of taxation, 170,561,981, and an estimated rate of collection of 99%, amounting to 1,215,766, of which 97%, as per town ordinance, goes to the general fund. The same, it's worded the same for Parks and Rec, where 3%, as per the ordinance, goes to Parks and Rec, 36,473. So that's the revised ordinance, and as I said before, that's the legal part right there. And that's the part they look at even more than the LGC. When I say they, even more than when they look at the revenue and expenditures. So on the revenue, I think we've pretty well gone over it. Let me just take a quick look. Yes, we did. I don't see any reason in repeating any of that. The expenditures. Oh, and I forgot to say up front, the salaries stayed the same as it did from the last budget meeting. There was no question about that from the LGC, so it stayed the same. So your old sheet on that is still the same. The revenues. If I could see green on here. I did an admin, I upped because professional services is increasing, so I upped that by 5,000. I kept, telephone and postage the same as it was, this current year. Departmental supplies, I went to 6,000 because all of that's going up, as we all know. Utilities, I went in between there at 8,000. Travel and school, I think we're a little bit over our budget under travel and school this year, so I went to 6,000 on that. And then down at the bottom, insurance and bonds, I only went up a little bit on that, but I'm still afraid of what's gonna come in because we have to pay for the 3 years of the police department recs and workers' comp. And all of that comes out of admin, so I'm a little afraid that that one's gonna bite us. It did us this year. And then miscellaneous expenses, left that as it was. I don't know why I have it green. The sheriff's department, of course, the personnel and operating expenses set by Randolph County. I still don't know what Randolph County is going to do with the sheriff's department, but I think we budgeted enough in there that we'll be able to cover whatever they decide to do. And the other thing that I changed was I put janitorial supplies back to where it was. And that's all, it's not just janitorial supplies, I just had that right close. It's departmental supplies, so that includes everything. Janitor stuff, bottled water, cleaning the sheriff's department. Anything can come out of that right there for departmental supplies. 7,000, I just went back to the way it was on utilities. It did go up to maintenance and repairs to the building, went up to 17,000, because when we had this extra money, then they had requested 13,000 to replace the floors up there, and they do look bad because they're kind of chalked up, what was left over from the bank. And so that did put more money in there for them to replace the floors. And I believe that's all for the sheriff's department. The fire department, we increased telephone, postage, and internet back to where it was this year. We increased departmental supplies back to where it was this year. We increased the utilities back to where it was this year. We increased the maintenance and repairs to the equipment back to where it was this year. Maintenance and repairs to vehicles back to where it was this year. Vehicle supplies, gas, we increased it back to where it was this year. And employee recognition back to where it was this year. And I believe that's all the changes that was made in the fire department. The street department, there was only a couple of changes there. We changed miscellaneous expenses up to 6,626 because there is a lot of equipment and such that they aren't needing. And capital outlay went up to 20. Sanitation didn't change. I don't believe nothing else changed. You did the parks and rec. No. Water sewer. Yeah. Water sewer, the changes there. Capital outlay equipment went up to 78,332. Debt and principal interest, oh, that was another thing that Ann mentioned to us. I had 38,000 on there, and what that was when we had the loan with Southern Software, we had, I can't remember that either, JC, 3 years, I believe, to pay for the actual software itself. And now all we're paying is a maintenance agreement each year, just so we can call them and ask them questions anytime we need to. So the maintenance agreement went up to, where did that go? Contracted services, right? Yeah, so 2/3 went up to contracted services on water, sewer, and admin takes care of 1/3. So, that's what that was. That was a savings toward that 77,000 also. The chemical expense, I went ahead and raised that because that just, it floors me every month when I see the bills. And, let's see, MasterCard Visa stayed the same, and reimbursement to general fund went down to 0. Health fund didn't have any changes, I've already mentioned where the Parks and Rec money went. And that's it. More money for everybody, all we have to do. They should be giving balloons or something, or throwing confetti. I don't know what's wrong with the department heads, but they should be happier than that. More money, more money. And so I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll sit down.
While I'm at it, I'll update you on the doors for the museum. There's no update. They're still working on them. They gotta build the doors. He said, as soon as they get them, they'll come install them. Anybody have anything?
I think it's good.
Public hearings next week on the budget, we'll vote then.
Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Carol, we thank you and Debbie for this hard work. I know it was a mess, especially after that $70-some thousand deal with the